Of what's been a particularly soggy month, March is wet. We've got more heavy rain for England and Wales, particularly into the weekend. We start April, but the weather's not really changed. We've got more rain on the way for then as well. Sophie.
Chris, thank you. And that's the BBC News at 10. There is more analysis of the day's main stories on Newsnight with Mark Urban, which is just getting underway on BBC Two. The news continues here, though, on BBC One. It's time to join our colleagues across the nations and regions for the news where you are. Goodbye.
Thanks, Sophie. You're watching South East Today. Our top story tonight, a promise to create more safe and legal routes for asylum after a Sussex MP puts pressure on the government. And two activists who scaled the QE2 bridge to protest against fossil fuels go on trial. Hello. First tonight, the changes being made to the government's plans to stop small boats crossing the Channel and arriving on our coast. The Immigration Minister has committed to creating more safe and legal asylum routes within the next year, after pressure from the Conservative MP for East Worthing and Shoreham. It comes as MPs scrutinise the illegal migration bill in Parliament, as our political editor Charlotte Wright reports.
Attempting to turn the tide. More than 3,500 people have crossed the Channel in small boats so far this year. It's a growing number, on track to beat last year's record of more than 45,700. And the Prime Minister has pledged to stop it. But this week his plans have come under scrutiny from MPs within his own party.
Is it right that an Afghan female judge or MP who arrives on a small boat should be treated differently to an Afghan female judge or MP who arrived here prior to this legislation?
We have to break the cycle of criminal gangs. We have to stop people dying when they are trying to make these dangerous journeys, and we've got to have a system which is fair for everybody.
The illegal migration bill is currently being debated in Parliament. It would mean anyone arriving in the UK on a small boat would be deported and blocked from claiming asylum. But yesterday evening it was challenged by the Conservative MP for East Worthing and Shoreham.
To take the example of the 16-year-old orphan boy from East Africa, who is not from Ukraine, who is not from Afghanistan, is not from Syria, and is not from Hong Kong, who has a single relative legally settled in the United Kingdom, there are precious few opportunities for him to be able to come to the UK in a safe and legal route.
And that intervention prompted this new assurance from the government.
And I can commit to engage with him and other colleagues ahead of report stage in setting up safe and legal routes, if necessary bringing forward further amendments to ensure that there are new routes in addition to the existing schemes, and accelerating the point at which they become operational, with our intention to open them next year.
It's not the only pressure the government has faced. Some opposition parties and charities believe the bill will break international law.
It's a disgraceful piece of legislation which essentially rips up the obligations this country has made internationally over the last many decades to protect refugees, to tackle human trafficking, and to respect people's human rights.
But the government says the new law will remove the incentive for people to take these journeys and pull the rug from under the criminal gangs profiting from them. Charlotte Wright, BBC South East Today.
Two environmental activists who scaled the QE2 bridge in Dartford last October in protest against the government's granting of fossil fuel licences have gone on trial. Morgan Troland and Marcus Decker are accused of causing a public nuisance. They spent more than 36 hours suspended high above the Thames, causing the closure of the bridge and gridlock on the surrounding roads. A man accused of shooting dead a police officer while handcuffed inside a police station has appeared at the Old Bailey. Louis de Zoyser is accused of killing custody sergeant Matt Ratner, who was head coach at East Grinstead Rugby Club. De Zoyser is said to have discharged 4 bullets in a holding cell at Croydon Custody Centre in 2020, hitting Sergeant Ratner and also injuring himself. De Zoyser was remanded in custody. A further hearing has been set for April the 24th. Visitors to one of the South East's most popular tourist hotspots will soon be asked to pay a flat fee of £30 to use a council-run car park. Rather, District Council's introducing the levy at Camber Sands Central. It said the aim was to get as much back into the council for the massive costs we have at Camber, but the move's proving controversial.
Most of our customers come from London, so they're looking at a huge fuel bill with increased fuel increases to get here and back. To then chuck a £30 fee on there, that won't leave them a lot to enjoy the day out with their children.
People in a Kent village have written to the Culture Secretary claiming they suffer some of the lowest broadband speeds in the UK. Villagers in Westmarsh near Sandwich say they're at an impasse with residents unable to access essential services online. The government says thousands of hard-to-reach premises in Kent and the South East are set to be connected, but some experts say that obligations are not being met.
The universal service obligation just is not delivering like it was intended to. It was intended to be a digital safety net, if you like, to catch those people who were being missed out of any full fibre broadband rollout. But it's clearly just not working. You can see that from the numbers.
And just before we go to the weather, congratulations to a little golfer who may yet become a big name. 7-year-old Elijah from Kent came top of the field at the World Junior Golf Championships in Portugal. The win means Elijah, who plays at Sandwich, qualifies for an even bigger event in California in July. Rory McIlroy, look out. Now, is it good weather for golf? Here's the forecast with John Hammond.
Thanks very much. Very good evening. Well, normally overnight it cools down, but in actual fact, tonight it's going to warm up. Temperatures by the end of the night will be in double figures just about across the board. Bit of dampness in the air, cloudy skies. Now, we could see a splash of heavier rain for a time in the morning. Won't last all that long. It'll move through, and then a lot of dry, if rather cloudy weather through the rest of the day. In any brightness, temperatures could well get as high as 15 degrees despite a gusty wind. Now, there will be a splash of heavier rain through tomorrow evening, maybe the old rumble of thunder. And then on Thursday, sunshine and showers. Still that gusty wind, but still relatively mild. The outlook remains very unsettled. Further rain, quite strong winds at the end of the week, cooling down a touch through the early part of next week.
Well, that's all from the late team. We're back with bulletins during BBC Breakfast tomorrow from 6. Until then, have a good night. Goodbye.
Looking for a new obsession? There's never